What's going on, noobs? I am Rory, the Perpetual Noob, and welcome to another exciting in-depth Hollow Knight guide. Today, we'll be talking about the Pantheon of the Artist, and the boss that awaits us at the end, the Bob Ross of Hollow Knight, Paintmaster Sheo. Paintmaster Sheo, also referred to as Sheo, is a boss added with the Godmaster content pack and found in Godhome. The fight we'll be talking about in this guide occurs at the end of the Pantheon of the Artist, also known as the Second Pantheon or Pantheon 2. Please see my Godmaster primer to learn how to access Godhome and some extra tidbits about this shiny new place. To enter the Pantheon of the Artist, we must first defeat several enemies outside of Godhome. Dream Warrior 0, Crystal Guardian, Soul Master, Double Oblobbles, Mantis Lords, Dream Warrior Marmu, Nosk, Fluke Marm, and Broken Vessel. Before we get to fight Paintmaster Sheo, we have to fight through the rest of the Pantheon of the Artist, defeating several enemies in this order. First, Dream Warrior 0, then Crystal Guardian, next is Soul Master, then Double Oblobbles, then Mantis Lords. After Mantis Lords, we have a chance to rest at a hot spring to restore our health and soul, and a bench if we'd like to swap out some charms. If we've completed enough bindings, we can grab some lifeblood health too. After the rest point, we fight Dream Warrior Marmu, then Nosk, then Fluke Marm, and the penultimate fight of the Pantheon of the Artist is Broken Vessel. After Broken Vessel, we have a moment to speak with the Godseeker and give ourselves a break. Then it's off to the final fight, Paintmaster Sheo. Sheo leaps into the air, pausing above where we were. While he's up there, he swipes down, sending 6 red paint blobs to the ground before slamming straight down in an explosion of red paint. Sheo determines where he's going to slam down before he leaps. The 6 red paint blobs arc down in a set pattern, 3 on each side of him, spreading across the entirety of the arena with large gaps in between. The paint explosion from the slam covers most of the space between the 2 blobs closest to Sheo. Paintmaster Sheo telegraphs this attack when he crouches down for a moment before leaping into the air. An interesting note, the tip of his paintbrush remains blue throughout the beginning of this attack. As he nears the apex of his jump, he somersaults and then raises his paintbrush above his head and out of sight. Then he swipes down with an arc of red, sending out the blobs. Sheo remains in the air for a moment before somersaulting again and raising his paintbrush high and out of sight again, before slamming down. Let's call this attack the Red Attack. Paintmaster Sheo performs an overhead swipe, sending out 3 blobs of blue paint in 3 arcs. Sheo shifts forward a little bit during the swipe. The blobs originate from the impact point and arc over about 60% of the arena, with large gaps in between. He can move or begin another attack before all of the blobs have landed. Paintmaster Sheo telegraphs this attack when he leans way back, and the tip of his paintbrush is blue. He stays bent over backwards for a moment before bringing his paintbrush overhead and down, launching the 3 blue blobs. Let's call this attack the Blue Attack. Paintmaster Sheo will stab his paintbrush forward, sending a spear of yellow paint across the arena. He shifts about a full body length forward when he attacks. The paint spear covers about 90% of the arena. Paintmaster Sheo telegraphs this attack when he draws his paintbrush back and the tip is colored yellow. He holds this position for about 3/4 of a second. Then he brings the paintbrush forward and launches the spear. Let's call this attack the Yellow Attack. Paintmaster Sheo holds his paintbrush overhead for a time before bringing it down in a huge arc, creating a large explosion of purple paint. About half a second later, up to 7 blobs of purple paint fall from the sky, landing at random locations throughout the arena. He will move or begin another attack before all of the blobs have landed. Paintmaster Sheo telegraphs this attack when he points his paintbrush to the sky and the tip is covered in purple. He charges up in this position for about 1 second, with the requisite charging shout. Then, with a bright flash, slams his paintbrush into the ground, creating an explosion of purple paint, including these 7 large blobs of paint which launch out of sight. Half a second later, those blobs of paint fall. Let's call this attack the Purple Attack. The Pantheon of the Artist has 10 unique foes. The bench is available to us after the first 5 fights. Before beginning any Pantheon, I would recommend having the Pure Nail, maximum hit points, maximum soul vessels, maximum charm notches, all nail arts, all combat-related movement abilities, especially the Shade Cloak, all empowered spells, and every charm. Dream Warrior Zero floats back and forth across the arena with nails floating beside him. Zero has 1 attack, sending one of his nails towards us. Zero remains in place while firing a nail. The range of this attack can be nearly the entire length of the arena. Once a nail has reached its maximum range, or the true bottom of the arena, it stops and spins before slowly returning to float by Zero's side. Zero moves after firing a nail, so a nail's return path will most likely be different from its attack path. This attack is telegraphed when Zero's cloak billows and the attacking nail spins in place. Dream Warrior Zero's fight has 2 phases. The first phase, Zero has 2 nails and attacks about every 3 seconds. The second phase begins when Zero pauses in the air and 2 more nails appear. During the second phase, Dream Warrior Zero attacks about every 1 3/4 seconds. Dashing, especially shadow dashing, is very helpful here. Nail arts are useful, Abyss Shriek is okay, and Shade Soul is very strong because it can double hit or more in a single cast. For the most part, healing is safest when we dodge a nail and put ourselves on the opposite side of Zero's travel, which should cause the returning nail to miss us. In the second phase, we must begin healing before the nail reaches the end of its range to have enough time to heal without charms. Similar tactics like I mentioned in my Crystal Guardian guide still work here. There is no bench though, so the fight just starts. It's much quicker to shadow dash through them during a beam attack so we can safely heal or continue our assault. Their outstretched arm during a beam attack and their crystal head are immune to nail damage. Please see my Soulmaster guide for... I'm just kidding. Much of the information in my Soulmaster guide is still useful, but we should have a lot more abilities this time around, so let's use them. Spells are great against Soulmaster, especially Abyss Shriek. Nail arts like Great Slash and Dash Slash are very strong in the first phase. We can strike Soulmaster during a slam or fake out slam attack by jumping to the side of Soulmaster and striking them as they come down. Soulmaster does still freak out between the first and second phases, but there is no stage transition. During the first phase, we can heal a hit point in between many attacks, or multiple hit points during the clock attack. Healing during the second phase is possible during the orb attacks. The double Obble is a pretty random fight. They float, because honestly I don't think those wings are doing anything, around diagonally up and down, and their one attack, the blob attack, has a pattern, but even that's kind of random too. The Obble's flight paths change a bit whenever they come into contact with anything except our body or their blobs. There are 2 phases to this fight. The first phase is when we're fighting both Obbles, and the second phase is when we're fighting only one. In the first phase, each Obble attacks about every 5 seconds, and the attack lasts for about 2.5 seconds. Their attacks can be synchronous or not. Their attack is telegraphed when they tilt towards the ground and float in place. Then the little gray dots all over them sprout into little vents. The orange blobs are expelled in groups of 4, each blob at 90-degree angles to each other. They expel a group of 4 blobs about every half second. Each group is randomly rotated with the center of the rotation being the Obble. Each Obble fires a total of 6 groups of blobs for a total of 24 blobs per attack. The blobs do drop off after traveling a long distance. While they are firing blobs, the Obble will remain in place unless damaged by us. Once we defeat one Obble, the second phase begins with the remaining Obble shouting, gaining about 25% of their maximum health, and becoming enraged. In this second phase, the remaining Obble flies faster, and their blob attack is more frequent and more dangerous. They attack about every 3.5 seconds. The blobs travel faster, each group of blobs is fired about every 1/4 of a second, and they fire 8 groups rather than 6. Nail arts like Great Slash and Dash Slash are useful throughout the fight. Same goes for Shade Soul and Abyss Shriek. We can either focus one Oblobble down, or we can do our best to distribute as much damage across both Oblobbles in Phase 1 so that the Phase 2 Oblobble has as little health as possible. Spells are very useful for distributing damage. The nail arts are great in the second phase because we have so little time between blob attacks. The safest place to heal is the corners. We can heal a hit point or more in between attacks, even in the second phase. Many tactics I discussed in my Mantis Lord's guide still work here. Feel free to use Descending Dark whenever the lords are not on the walls. When a Mantis Lord is on a wall, hit them with Abyss Shriek. If a single Mantis Lord is at the bottom of the wall, their Wind Scythe will start low and end above us. If a single Lord is on the middle of the wall, their Wind Scythe will start at their height and end low. Thanks to all of you noobs who mentioned that in the comments of the Mantis Lord's guide. We can heal a couple hit points during the transition from fighting one Lord to two. We can heal a hit point during single boomerang attacks if we quickly get close to the Lord who threw it and begin healing. Dream Warrior Marmu is a fight. For starters, her physics are very bad. Whenever she takes damage from us, she bounces, and her bounce is not always in accordance with Newton's third law. She teleports around the arena, sometimes in between her attacks, and sometimes during her attacks. Her singular attack is curling into a ball, hurling herself at us, kind of, and bouncing around the arena in this ball form. She gains speed if she bounces against the ceiling or a wall while curled up. Her attack accuracy is random. Sometimes we can heal multiple hit points without charms while she's attacking, and other times we get hit right away. It's important to dodge only when we need to. Moving too much generally results in us getting hit. She sporadically uncurls and stops her attack for a few moments throughout the fight. These moments are the safest times to damage her. If we want to damage her when she's attacking, the spell Descending Dark is safest, if only due to the invincibility frames provided by the spell. If we use our nail, it's good to hit her at maximum range. The nail art Great Slash can be useful here, as well as range extending charms like Mark of Pride, but there's still no guarantee she won't bounce through the attack. She can also bounce through Shade Soul and Abyss Shriek. Despite this, Abyss Shriek is a great way to get in a lot of damage at the start of the fight when Marmu first appears above us. The same tactics apply as I've stated in my Nosk guide. Thankfully, the long, horrifying transformation has already happened, and the spot, trademark, is still there. Nosk tends to preface an explosion attack by charging to the center of the arena. They also tend to preface a rain attack with a leap or two before launching into the ceiling. When Nosk is performing their rain attack, we can still damage them with our nail and spells. And look at this! There's another spot, trademark, on the right side of the arena. Much of what I said in my Flukmarm guide still holds. Abyss Shriek is very strong here because it can not only damage Flukmarm, but deal with the Fluke phase fairly reliably. The lowest platforms, specifically directly under the small platforms above, are safe for healing. In addition to the tactics I discussed in my Broken Vessel guide, Defender's Crest is also very useful here, like it is against Lost Kin. Nail Arts and Shade Soul are great here. Multiple Descending Darks is a wonderful response to the Headbanger attack. There are some charms that I believe are useful throughout the entire Pantheon. Charms like Fragile/Unbreakable Strength, also known as Strength, Mark of Pride, Nailmaster's Glory, Shaman Stone, Spell Twister, Soul Catcher, Hive Blood, and Quick Focus. There's a lot of health to get through in any Pantheon, and Strength helps us get through it faster. Most of the foes in this Pantheon do not stay still for long, and/or they fly, so increasing our Nail Strike damage by 50% is very helpful. Mark of Pride helps us against essentially every foe in this Pantheon for much the same reason Strength is so helpful. If we only have 2 charm notches available, Long Nail is a viable substitute. Nail Arts are useful against many foes in the Pantheon of the Artist because they let us do massive damage quickly. Nailmaster's Glory lets us execute Nail Arts twice as fast, almost guaranteeing we can have a Nail Art ready as a response to every attack. Spells are useful against every foe in this Pantheon. Shaman Stone empowers our spells, and Spell Twister allows us to cast more spells per soul gauge. Each charm individually is useful throughout the Pantheon, and the combination of both charms can be devastating. Because so many foes in this Pantheon either fly or stay very mobile, gaining soul quickly or even reliably can be tricky. Soul Catcher helps us gain a little more soul with every nail hit. If you have 4 charm notches to spare, well, bring Soul Eater instead. All Pantheons are an endurance test, and Hive Blood keeps our health recharging without expending soul or needing to stop moving. Quick Focus gives us more opportunities to heal safely. We've got a lot of foes to get through between rest points, so having the capability to heal more often and faster is great. There are other charms that I believe are useful, but not for the entire Pantheon, or on their own at least. Charms like Steady Body, Fluke Nest, Rubberfly's Elegy, Fury of the Fallen, Sharp Shadow, Dream Shield, Shape of Un, and Fragile/Unbreakable Heart, also known as Heart. Steady Body is useful against several enemies in this Pantheon, if for no other reason than because it lets us stay with these flying and quick-moving foes while we hit them with our nail. Steady Body's utility is maxed out if we combine it with Quick Slash and Strength. Shade Soul is useful throughout most of the Pantheon, and, for the most part, so is Fluke Nest. Fluke Nest provides a huge damage boost to our Shade Soul spell, but its shorter range can be problematic. Rubberfly's Elegy has a lot of utility in this Pantheon, but we need to maintain full health to benefit from it, without Fury of the Fallen, and Rubberfly's Elegy works best when combined with Quick Slash and Strength. Fury of the Fallen is an interesting choice. It is safest to use when activated just before the resting point, and we've completed at least 8 bindings, so we can have some lifeblood at the rest point, because being at 1 hit point with bonus lifeblood keeps the damage boost active and allows us to get hit more than once. Combining this with Quick Slash and Strength, and Rubberfly's Elegy if we want, allows us to demolish enemies quickly. The Shade Cloak isn't a requirement for Godhome, but it really helps. Sharp Shadow increases the distance and adds our nail damage to our Shadow Dash. Sharp Shadow is a great charm to swap in at the bench because it's more useful in the latter part of the Pantheon, especially against Nosk and Paintmaster Sheo. Dream Shield is an interesting charm. Its rotation can make it kind of tricky to use, but it can shut down some attacks, like Mantis Lord's boomerang attacks and Broken Vessel's balloons. It can also stop blobs and orbs, except Soulmaster's clock attack or any of Sheo's attacks. For maximum effect, pair Dream Shield with Dream Wielder. Moving while healing, thanks to Shape of Un, is useful in some of this Pantheon. For maximum efficacy, combine Shape of Un with Quick Focus. This combination allows us to safely heal 1 or more hit points against nearly every attack in the entire Pantheon. I recommend Heart as the only health boosting charm because there are a lot of fights before the bench and after. Giving ourselves lifeblood through things like Lifeblood Core, Lifeblood Heart, or Joni's Blessing is okay, but it's better to be able to heal rather than having a set amount of health. The minion build is a fun charm combination that is okay against many foes in the Pantheon. The minion build is Weaver Song, Glowing Womb, Grimchild, preferably level 4, Grub Song, Sprint Master, and Defender's Crest. The real MVPs are Grimchild and Glowing Womb because many enemies fly in this Pantheon. Defender's Crest provides extra damage, but can be more of a hazard, especially against Sheo. I've talked a lot about various charms, but none of this helps if we're attempting the charm binding. If we're doing that, then we've got to be more patient, since fights will take longer. We can still heal, but only during those no charm moments I discussed earlier. It's also important to use our spells and nail arts because they still do a lot more damage in single uses than a strike from even the pure nail. A real great thing about Godmaster is that if we are struggling against any of the enemies in the Pantheon of the Artist, we can practice against them in the Hall of Gods. To practice against Sheo in the Hall of Gods, we must fight him in the Pantheon first. Let's talk about some other tactics that are specifically for Paintmaster Sheo. I tend to fight Sheo in a rhythmic way. Sheo attacks, I hit him with a nail art, charged quicker with Nailmaster's Glory, and a follow-up nail strike. Sheo backs off, then attacks again. I hit him with a nail art, Great Slash or Dash Slash usually, and a follow-up nail strike. Lather, rinse, repeat until Sheo is defeated. Sheo doesn't change tactics as the fight progresses. This tactic certainly isn't going to win any speedrunning events, but it's the strategy that works for me. Paintmaster Sheo rarely stays still. He will move before attacking, he will roll away from us if we get too close, within one knight's height of him, after an attack, and then he still may move before attacking again. If we get too close and Sheo is near the edge of the arena, he will jump out of the corner before attacking. And Paintmaster Sheo moves during every attack. I recommend we also do our best to stay out of the corner. We can get stuck there with Sheo not backing off and doing purple and blue attacks, which can be very dangerous when we have limited space to move. This is one of the moments when Sharp Shadow can be exceptionally helpful. I recommend only jumping to avoid the yellow attack. The sky tends to be full of hazards otherwise. When we see Sheo lean back for a blue attack, we can shadow dash through Sheo, or we can take up a position in between the blobs by walking/running into one of the gaps. I recommend dashing only as a reaction to avoid the paintbrush or a blob about to smack us in the face. Anything with good range, including dashing in and attacking, is a good way to respond to this attack after the blobs have been launched, if we stay in front of Sheo. If we get behind Sheo, we can go nuts with whatever we want to do. I find Sheo's yellow attack to be the most dangerous. The range is nearly full screen, the telegraph catches me off guard, and the entire attack is over quickly, meaning we don't have as much time to damage Sheo safely as we do with his other attacks. In addition to jumping over this attack, we can time our shadow dash to avoid the paint spear, get real close to Sheo and shadow dash through him, or use Descending Dark to avoid the attack and damage Sheo at the same time. We've got options when we see Sheo leap into the air. We can cast Abyss Shriek before he slams down, then shadow dash away, or cast Descending Dark for safer damage. It's safest to reposition ourselves between the blobs rather than underneath Sheo because that paint explosion is coming. Like with the blue attack, it's better to walk/run to get into a safe position and only dash if we're going to get hit. After the paint explosion, we can rush in with our nail, or we can stand back and use long-range attacks. Sheo's purple attack is his one big charge-up attack. Staying in front of him and damaging him is risky unless we stay far away and blast him with Shade Souls. A great tactic is to get behind him while he's charging and damage him however we want, because Sheo stands still until after the paint explosion. After the explosion, we need to keep one eye on the sky for those random paint blobs, and one eye on Sheo because he will attack or move as the blobs fall. Sheo can be staggered during the fight. He'll be staggered either after 12 hits, or 10 if they are within about 1 second of each other. These hits can be damage from any source. We'll know when Sheo is staggered because there will be a burst of paint everywhere, and Sheo will be hunched over. He gets back to fighting after a couple seconds, or if we damage him, whichever comes first. There are many opportunities to heal in this fight, even without charms. We can heal 1 hit point during the red attack. This tends to require dashing to safety almost as soon as we see the attack start. We can heal 1 or more hit points during both the blue and purple attacks. To get multiple hit points during the blue attack, we need to be in a safe position almost even before the attack starts. And we can heal 2 hit points when Sheo's staggered. When we defeat Paintmaster Sheo, paint goes everywhere. He bows to us, and the Pantheon of the Artist is complete. The Hunter's Journal entry for Paintmaster Sheo contains a prayer from the God-Seekers recognizing Sheo for his creative and artistic talents, and asking him to reveal that one god they are seeking, like they did with their prayer to Oro and Mato. And from the Hall of Gods, Paintmaster Sheo is the talented god of artists and creators. I've had a lot of great discussions with many noobs about the lore of Godmaster and the God-Seekers since the Pantheon of the Master Guide was released, some of which has changed how I interpret the space known as Godhome. But I still have questions. First, a little bit about Sheo. We find Sheo deep in Greenpath, painting a still life. He speaks of how he was once driven to be a strong nail master, but eventually felt like the nail was no longer his passion. He recognizes the similarities between the nail and the brush, but he's no longer interested in using the nail. He even hesitates to teach us his nail art, instead hoping we'll take up a brush and join him in painting. And when he does teach us his nail art, great slash, he does so by painting it. After training us, he still offers for us to join him with his art once we tire of the nail. Sheo was the strongest nail master when he and his brothers were training with the Great Nail Sage. And even back then, in the time of the 5 Great Knights of Hallownest, he spoke with his brothers about pursuing something else. Now we're here in Godhome, in this pantheon dedicated to the artist, Paintmaster Sheo, fighting Paintmaster Sheo. Are we fighting Sheo in his dreams, like we seem to do with Hornet? Are we fighting Sheo from his prime, which is a popular belief of all Pantheon bosses? Or are we fighting an old version of Sheo, one who was a nail master, but his heart wished to paint, and the Godseeker could somehow see the mind of Sheo? Look at it this way. After the nailsmith makes the pure nail and we spare him, we find him and Sheo hanging out together, creating various works of art, some sculptures, some paintings. They are both happy and enjoying their time together creating, and ask us to join them. Sheo isn't interested in fighting anymore. So for me, this eliminates the notion that Paintmaster Sheo is Dream Sheo. But what about Prime or Old Version Sheo? Sheo is clearly a skilled nail master. Essentially everyone who knew him says that. But he's fighting with a paintbrush, what he took up when he put down his nail. Why would an old version of Sheo be fighting with a paintbrush and not a nail? And this same question applies to Prime version Sheo. Sheo is another example of what I think the Godseekers are, as one noob put it, like Bretta on steroids. These are fan versions. Everything we fight before the final Pantheon bosses are as we knew them, because that is when the God Tuner allowed the Godseekers to begin focusing on them, or attuning to them. But the Godseekers attuned to these final bosses seemingly a long time ago, which of course brings up the issue of the 5 Great Knights. It is stated that the Godseekers only showed up in Hallownest after the Pale King was gone, but why didn't they attune to Ogrim and Zemare or any other Great Knight who was still around then? Were the Great Knights that much weaker than the Nail Masters, or their power levels so well hidden that they escaped the notice of the Godseekers? It seems like the Godseekers arbitrarily attuned to only some sources of power rather than all of them when they showed up in Hallownest. But then why do we have some fights that are not final Pantheon bosses but still exclusive to Godhome? Leaving those inconsistencies behind, maybe when the Godseekers first attuned to these final Pantheon bosses, they were more like what we could have expected them to be based on what we know of Hallownest history. But years of being locked away in that sarcophagus has twisted the Godseekers' version of these gods. I believe the sarcophagus kept the Godseekers' attuning powers sealed away as well. Otherwise, what's the point in locking them up? And there's still the mystery of who sealed the Godseekers away in the first place. The fact that Sheo is painting a picture of the Godseeker, or just their mask, when we find him, suggests to me again that we're dealing with a bunch of toxic fans who look at these gods as their playthings rather than actual sentient creatures worthy of being treated with respect. We're seeing what they believe to be the right version of Sheo. We're seeing what they see, which is twisted by their obsession with this unhealthy need to have a connection to a god, lest their minds go silent. I think they've only had themselves to talk with while sealed away, and that's caused some problems. Like, what is it about this Sheo's Dreamnail dialogue that sounds like the bug we meet in Greenpath? Greenpath Sheo sounds self-aware and humble, like Bob Ross. Godhome Sheo sounds arrogant and twisted. And let's not forget that these fights appear to be entertainment for these Godseekers as they watch their gods fight us over and over again. As I think about Paintmaster Sheo as a boss here, more questions about Godmaster come to mind, and no amount of me watching Mossbag's Godmaster video seems to answer them. How did Godhome function before the Godseeker was sealed away? They attuned to the gods through combat, yet who was fighting? What about when they were sealed away? Obviously, after we released her, it was us doing the fighting, but did they have the gods fight amongst themselves before? Is that what happened to the previous gods we find in the Land of Storms? They killed themselves with the Godseekers' attunement and ascension? Have the Godseekers always been seeking that one true god, or is that a new obsession? What was Godhome like before we flooded it with all of these new gods? When it was just the final Pantheon bosses, plus those extra gods? There's still so much I want answered. Anyway, that's it for our discussion about the Pantheon of the Artist and Paintmaster Sheo. Thank you for joining me today, noobs. Stay tuned for future Hollow Knight guides. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the second Pantheon of Godhome in the comments. I am the Perpetual Noob, and I'll see you all next time.
Bum.